There was a time in my life that I yelled more than I talked. I yelled more than I laughed. I yelled more than any other form of communication in my house. Stay with me to the end of this video because there is a very powerful nervous system lesson, okay? You're gonna get something out of this. Actually, this completely changed my life and the way that I live my life. So at the time I was around about either 27 or 28. I was definitely going through a lot of things, but this video is not about that. My kids were little and I was completely irritated. How do I know that? Because when I think back, my entire vocabulary was filled up with things like, I'm annoyed, you're annoying, you're getting on my nerves, you're irritating me. This is what I was constantly telling people. I was constantly telling my kids, I was constantly telling my family members, I was constantly telling everybody. I was always in a rush when I was driving. I was irritated when the light took too long to turn green. I was intense. And that was the language that was constantly coming out of my mouth. And I feel so bad because I was always yelling at my kids. Looking back, I probably yelled at them more than I talked to them normally. I was just always yelling. One morning I was driving them to school and I was yelling at them, probably over some bullshit. Probably over something completely unnecessary. It's crazy too because I was pulling up to their school in a luxury whip, driving around the Southern California hills. I pull up to their school and my little kids hop out the car and I tell them, have a great day, kids. Completely code switched. But I had just been yelling at these little kids on our way to the school, talking about some have a good day, kids. And then when they closed the door and on my way back to my luxury home that I was getting ready to drive back to, a thought popped into my head. How could they have a good day if their mother was just yelling at them? How could they have a day if their day started by getting yelled at? And then another thought hit me. If I could switch my voice up that fast, if I could go instantly from yelling to have a good day, kids, then why couldn't I just be nice to them that entire morning? Why did the kids have to get the brute force of my nervous system instead? That was the moment I realized something about myself. I had an aha moment, an awakening. My nervous system was completely fried down to the ground. Survival mode had became me. And I started noticing my body. My shoulders were always up by my ears. That's why I know yours are. My tongue was constantly stuck to the roof of my mouth. Now, I know our tongue is supposed to naturally rest at the roof of our mouth, but it's not supposed to constantly be sucked at the roof of your mouth even when you're in the middle of a conversation. Your jaw is not supposed to be clenching on for dear life in the middle of a casual conversation. You're supposed to be relaxed. You see? You're supposed to be calm. You see, that's what makes a conversation go smoothly. All right? And so I was always clenching my jaw. I was always on edge. I was always ready to snap, always ready to pop off. And it's because my body was constantly living in fight or flight all day long. But for no reason other than the fact that I had always been trained and primed my entire life for fight or flight. I was trained to be dysregulated, and so anytime that's the case, in order to normalize something in your life, you would become the opposite. So if I was dysregulated, I needed to get regulated. It just makes sense, right? It just, aha. Light bulb moment, right? So I didn't need to be constantly yelling all the time at my loved ones. I didn't need to constantly be short with passerbyers. I didn't always need to speed around in my car when literally all I had to do in my 20s was take my kids to school and pick them up from school. That has been my life. And so what in that did I need to rush through life for? And so baby me, 28-year-old me, or 27, I don't know what age I was, realized that my nervous system was in control and it was in survival mode. And I react in fight or flight at all times, even with people that I should not be fighting or running from, you see? So that's why it's important to identify those things, because where awareness goes, correction follows. If we could see it, we could correct it. But that moment in the car where I was yelling at my kids and then code switched and told them to have a great day, that was a wake-up call for me. Because once I saw that, I couldn't unsee that. I couldn't see the way my kids were confused about how I was just being mean to them and now I'm being nice to them. And so I changed. I made the decision to change. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do, was look myself in the mirror and tell myself that, girl, you got a lot of changing to do. Shoot. But I couldn't unsee any of it. I will say something changed instantly, is that I stopped yelling. Not only did I stop yelling, but I actually kind of began to whisper. And it's something that I now, 37-year-old me now, I have to train myself to speak up, because I don't always need to whisper now. I remember when I first undergone this transformation, I started speaking really slow. I just slow myself down because, again, I was speeding through life for absolutely no reason. If you watched my Cosmic Pisces video, I suggest that everybody watches it because it's a message for all zodiac signs. I'm just a Pisces, so I was showing Pisces love in the title. However, I was saying how the human race, we just run around to do everything we do on a lively basis. And that's probably why it's called the human race, because that's all we do is race. But I didn't want to race. I wanted to slow down. I wanted to enjoy my life. As you heard me said, I lived in a gorgeous Southern California suburb in the hills. I was driving the car of my dreams. I didn't have to go to work. I was getting ready to go home to a luxury place. Why was I angry? Why was I mad all the time? Oh, because I was in survival mode. I had been trained that way. Why am I always yelling, and why am I'm in fight or flight? Why is everybody and everything on my nerves? Oh, your nervous system is dysregulated. Why is my life not manifesting the way it's like, baby, things are manifesting beautifully for you. You're just too dysregulated that if it hit you right in between your eyes, you wouldn't see it. Dysregulation can blind you. But again, as I said, instantly after I had that realization, I stopped yelling. Honestly, I don't know if I could yell right now if I even tried. My voice became way more calm, super low. So I went from shouting constantly to speaking softly. I also became intentional about how I spoke to my children and to my people, my loved ones, and just to the people of the world. I made a decision. I didn't talk to my kids like they're adults. I didn't talk to them like they were authority figures. I didn't talk to them like they were my enemies. I definitely didn't talk to them like they were unloved by their mother. I talked to them like what they were, my children. Children who deserve to be loved and spoken to with love from their mother. And of course, this was 28-year-old me, revelations that 28-year-old me I had. I'm 37 now. So this was 9 years ago. So 9 years ago, I realized that happiness was a choice, and so is anger. Now, things do definitely happen out of our control. Things do happen to us that step us outside of our power. But every emotion we express is still a choice. So from that day forward, I became very intentional about how I showed up to people. Before I reacted to anything, I took a deep breath in. I took a deep breath out. I don't make dysregulated decisions anymore. I always bring myself back to a regulated baseline. And that's the way that I live. That's what I practice. That is my goal that I strive for, is regulation. Constantly trying to strengthen my regulation muscles, staying in a calm, coherent, parasympathetic nervous system state as much as possible. It's not possible to be in that nervous system state 100%. I'm just trying to stay in there as much as possible, you see. Because when you live that way, something very interesting happens. Your energy starts to change. Your presence changes. So now I get told yes more. I get the invitations. My applications get approved. My shots go in. My deadlines get met. Again, I get yeses. I get more yeses by being regulated. When your nervous system is regulated, life responds to you differently. Being regulated gets you told yes more. Thank you all so much for watching, liking, and subscribing to the channel. I'm Christina, and I'll see you all in the future.